Before my business trip, I left my daughter an unlimited black card, with only one rule: spend at least $5 million a month. I wanted her to learn to manage money, and I thought her spending would motivate me to earn more. At first, it seemed harmless, even fun, but soon, I realized something was terribly wrong. In 3 days, she bought hundreds of luxury items. In 5 days, 10 villas. And just yesterday, she had purchased 100 adult toys. Worried, I secretly flew back to investigate. The moment I landed, a call from the hospital froze me in place. "Miss Cross? Your daughter was hit by a car while scavenging for things to sell. She's at Crestwood Hospital," the nurse said, her voice sharp with blame. "If you don't come immediately, you might not see her again." My heart pounded as I raced to the hospital. When I arrived, I found her small, frail frame lying in a bed, her arm and right leg in thick casts that made her delicate limbs look even thinner. Just then, my phone pinged. The black card had been used for a high-end spa. A faint, bittersweet smile touched my lips. She liked swiping cards, did she? Fine. Let her spend to her heart's content. I held the birthday present I had carefully chosen, imagining her surprised, happy face. But before I could reach her, dozens of missed calls flashed on my phone. Another call came through. "This is Crestwood Hospital. Are you Skylar Cross's mother? Your daughter was hit yesterday while scavenging and was rushed here. She's alive, but the medical fees must be paid immediately. If you don't come, we'll have to discharge her to fend for herself." I froze, stunned. How could this happen? My daughter had a nanny, a black card, everything she could ever need. Yet here she was, broken, scared, and in danger. I told my driver to take me to the hospital at once. When the car stopped, I ran to her room. Her face was bruised, swollen, and tear-streaked. She clung to my shoulder, sobbing. "Mommy, the nurse said today's the deadline. If we don't pay, they'll throw me out." I stroked her hair gently. "I left you the black card. How could you run out of money?" Her body shook as she whispered. "Brandon snatched my card and gave it to Cassidy. He said I don't deserve to be a Thorne heiress, or to be with him." Brandon Miller, the son of our nanny, and Cassidy White, the girls swapped at birth, names that should have been meaningless, but instead brought a pang of betrayal to my heart. I had sent Cassidy away, given her everything she needed, thinking I had been fair. Seeing my daughter so timid, so wasted by neglect, made my chest ache. I hugged her tighter and promised, "No one will ever bully you again. Mommy won't let them get away with this." Just as I finished speaking, a stern-looking nurse burst into the room and slapped a bill onto the bed. Her eyes practically rolled back as she barked, "Pay the medical fees now. Don't think you can get away with it." I looked around the dim, crowded ward, at the filthy bed my daughter lay on, and my patience snapped. One phone call later, the dean and dozens of medical staff appeared in a rush. The nurse's face drained of color. "Your attitude toward patients makes you unfit to work here," the dean declared. "You're fired." Then he turned to me, bowing deeply and apologizing profusely. "Miss Cross, this was our oversight. We are truly sorry your daughter had to endure such treatment." The nurse finally realized the magnitude of whom she had angered. She tried to plead, but security escorted her out. I refused the dean's offer to transfer Skylar to another room and made a second call. Less than 10 minutes later, a professional medical team arrived to escort Skylar out. My assistant, heels clicking sharply against the floor, followed me respectfully. "During your absence, Brandon Miller started his own company," she reported, her tone steady. "He claimed to be your future son-in-law to gain advantages. He took numerous projects from our firm, assuming you would eventually let him inherit the company." My expression hardened as she continued. "He also insisted that he only recognized Cassidy White as his fiancée. She has taken control of the assets meant for Skylar and even forced your daughter out of the Thorne family mansion." I clenched my fists. Brandon had grown arrogant after attending the most exclusive academies. He got a little kindness and thought he was untouchable. And Cassidy, living as my daughter's substitute for over a decade, felt no guilt. Worse, she tried to steal Skylar's rightful place. They had forgotten who they were dealing with. No one crosses Victoria Cross's daughter. My phone buzzed with another black card alert. It was an auction entry fee. My assistant hesitated. "Miss Cross, should I cancel the black card immediately?" I smiled faintly. "Not yet. Just cancel it before 7 tonight. Also, Skylar and I will attend tonight's underground auction," she added. "Understood, Miss Cross. I'll make the arrangements, My assistant replied with respect. I thought to myself, they love money, do they? I'll give them a gift they'll never forget. Then I added firmly, investigate how Skylar got those injuries. Seeing the scars on my daughter, my heart ached with both fury and sorrow. Skylar, sensing my intensity, tugged at my sleeve timidly. Mommy, are you mad at me? I'm sorry. I won't say bad things about my sister anymore. You can give her anything. Please don't abandon me. Her small voice made my chest tighten. Mommy isn't mad at you, sweetheart. I'm mad at myself for not protecting you better. Her eyes shone at my words, then dimmed again. But Brandon said you'd prefer Cassidy because she's better, and if I wasn't obedient, I'd be sent away. I chuckled coldly. Where did he get such confidence? Brandon had been Skylar's senior at school, outwardly accomplished in academics and character. I had thought leaving him in the mansion would help Skylar settle back in. I hadn't realized I'd invited a wolf into my home. Lifting Skylar's chin, I looked into her tear-filled eyes and spoke carefully. Skylar Cross, you are the only child of the Cross and Thorn families. You will inherit everything we have. That sister nonsense is meaningless, and you don't need a husband to help you. You are the future CEO. Her frown softened, and slowly she nodded, determination returning to her little face. That was more like it. At 7 in the evening, I led Skylar into the opulent, dazzling auction house, nestled 9 floors beneath the city center. Here, anything could be bought: power, prestige, even influence. Distinguished guests, please proceed to the 3rd floor private rooms, a hostess in a sleek, elegant gown instructed as I presented my badge. She immediately greeted us with deep respect. This badge wasn't for sale. It demanded both wealth and influence. Below us on the 1st floor, multimillionaires jostled for position, lucky to even secure a regular seat. Eat up, I said to Skylar, gesturing to the spread of delicate pastries and expensive drinks that lined the private room. I handed her a plate of butterfly-shaped confections. Through the one-way glass, I spotted Cassidy White and Brandon Miller on the 1st floor. Cassidy, surrounded by her classmates like a princess, radiated confidence. Her flawless skin and designer couture made my heart twist painfully as I glanced at my frail daughter beside me. The auction began. Cassidy announced it was her birthday and that she wanted to buy something extravagant for everyone. Each time she bid, I raised the price relentlessly. Who is that on the 3rd floor always going against me? Aren't they afraid of offending the Thorn family? Cassidy's voice was sharp, annoyance creeping in as a simple accessory skyrocketed from 1 million to 5. Brandon, attempting to calm her, pulled out a black card. It's fine, sweetheart. Money is just a number. Once it's over, I'll see who they are and deal with them. Skylar watched me nervously. I never purchased anything. I only drove the prices higher. Then, as if by instinct, I produced a black velvet box. Those things outside are common. This is the birthday gift Mommy prepared for you, sweetheart. See if you like it. Skylar opened the box and froze. Inside lay a rare emerald necklace, once worn by a British princess. One of a kind, utterly priceless. Nothing in today's auction could compare. It's too precious. I don't deserve it. Her small hands trembled, unable to touch it. I took it gently from the box, my tone firm. Only you deserve it, my little princess. I fastened it around her neck personally. For the first time, she hugged me tightly. Thank you, Mommy, she whispered. Thank you for not despising me, even though I'm worthless. A warmth spread through my chest. I promised myself that she would have the best of everything, and anyone who dared bully her would pay. After a brief mother-daughter moment, I stepped away for a work call. When I returned, Skylar was surrounded by students on the 1st floor. Skylar Cross, Cassidy didn't even invite you. How thick-skinned are you? Tagging along, one girl sneered. Miss Thorne is treating the class to an experience and bought something extravagant for each of us. Another added, but that doesn't include a little street rat like you. Look at that cheap garbage around her neck. So green. It's totally fake, a short-haired girl said, yanking the necklace from Skylar's neck. The force left a bruised, bleeding mark. She still thinks she's a rich heiress. She even dares to call herself a Thorn family member. Ha ha ha, a jock laughed, and the group erupted into mockery. Hands grabbed at her crutch, pushing her to the ground. Skylar cried out, her small body overwhelmed by their assault. Stop, I roared, my voice slicing through the chaos. I grabbed the short-haired girl's raised wrist. There was a sharp crack as her bone dislocated, and she cried out, dropping the silver chain as it hit the floor. My heart ached, but I only had eyes for Skylar. I helped her to her feet and wiped the tears from her face with both hands. It's okay, sweetheart, it's okay. Mommy's here now, I told her. The students around us stood in stunned silence, whispering. She really did come with her mom. She doesn't look poor at all. No matter how rich she is, she can't compare to Miss Thorne's mother. So what is there to fear? The short-haired girl, furious, stormed closer. Your daughter offended Miss Thorne. If you both kneel and apologize, we'll let it go today, she sneered. How impressive, Miss Thorne, I said, my voice slow and flat. May I remind you that I, Victoria Cross, do not recall giving birth to anyone but Skylar. The crowd shifted, the murmur rising into a ripple of recognition. In this city, everyone had heard the name Victoria Cross, but few had ever seen her. No private information leaked online. No gossip gave her away. They knew only that she was the sole heir of the Cross dynasty and that her husband was Damien Thorne, the ruthless head of the Thorne family, a man who made both high society and the underworld tremble. She was not a mere socialite. She had inherited a business empire and wielded it like a blade. No one dared underestimate her. Is that really Miss Cross? Someone asked. She was the one outbidding Miss Thorne, wasn't she? The short-haired girl's face shifted from green to white as realization set in. She tried to salvage pride with venom. Clearly the apple does not fall far from the tree. No wonder this little bitch learned to impersonate. You taught her well. Another piped up. Cassidy said Miss Cross is in Europe. You just exposed yourself. The girl lunged, and before anyone else could react, I kicked her into the wall. She coughed blood onto the floor. I picked up the silver chain and, without hesitation, used it as a warning. Those brats screamed and scrambled, but the more they attacked, the louder they paid for it. Where did this crazy woman come from? Grab her, they cried, but their shouts dissolved into frightened yelps as I moved. Cassidy stood frozen, pale as paper. Her eyes found me and she reached out, clutching my sleeve. Mom, please let me explain. Brandon forced a strained smile and said, Auntie Victoria. The students who had been puffing themselves up moments before were now dumbfounded. Brandon called her what? Someone whispered. This crazy woman is really Victoria Cross? Is Skylar Cross actually a Thorne? They only have one daughter, don't they? I did not flinch. I slapped Cassidy across the face, my voice controlled, cold. Explain, fake heiress, how you tortured my biological daughter, whom I searched for and brought back. Explain how the card I gave Skylar ended up in your hands, how you bribed others to bully her. She tried to stammer something, but her face swelled after a dozen slaps, and she leaned entirely on Brandon for support. Brandon's expression mixed pity and outrage. Auntie Victoria, Cassidy adored you so much. How could you hurt her like this? You raised her for 18 years. I raised an eyebrow, looking at him for the first time with more than passing contempt. You're just my nanny's son. Who gave you the right to steal Skylar's things? The students glanced at one another in confusion. Weren't Brandon and his family wealthy? Brandon's cheeks flushed. He'd pretended to be a second-generation heir for years, hiding his true origins, but now he held his composure. Auntie Victoria, he said through clenched teeth, if you want your family business to have a successor, Skylar Cross isn't fit. He pointed at Cassidy. I only love Cassidy. I will never marry anyone else. The room held its breath, the sound of that declaration hanging in the air. I felt only a cold, steady flame settle in my chest. Whatever he believed, whatever lies he had told himself, would not stand. Skylar was my daughter, and she would not be shoved aside. I had never been at a loss for words in my life, until that moment. Who you marry is none of my concern, I said, voice calm, precise. My family's wealth does not belong to you. Then I added, sharper. But because you bullied Skylar, neither the Cross nor the Thorne families will let this go. A few business owners in the crowd exchanged looks, the calculations on their faces changing. They had treated Brandon like a prospective son-in-law because everyone assumed Victoria Cross had groomed him as the heir. Now, watching the scene unfold, he looked more like an opponent than a favored successor. Their strategies shifted in an instant. Brandon stared at me, incredulous. You only have one daughter, he protested. Besides me, who else will help you run the company? Fine. Keep telling yourself whatever lies you need, I said. But if Skylar stays, she will not inherit a single cent of Thorne family assets. Maybe a small allowance at most. He framed it as a concession, as if he were doing me a favor. I had had enough of empty words. In a few swift motions, I had them bound and tossed in front of Skylar. The club security did not intervene. They even helped hold them down, a silent demonstration of who still carried power in this room. Beat them, I told Skylar, handing her back the crutch. Whatever they did to you, do it right back. Skylar's eyes, large and doe-like, shone vividly on her slender face. She wiped at her tears with one hand, then raised the crutch. When she struck like someone who had been keeping score for years, unloading grievances stored too long. The look on her face was not cruelty. It was a release. Brandon, seeing the scene, wrapped an arm around Cassidy and tried to slip away. Please settle today's bill first, a staff member called after them, official and impersonal. Miss Cassidy, White owes $98 million. Cassidy reached for her card with a practice snap. Swipe it now, she ordered. She pushed the black card forward like a talisman. The staff member smiled professionally and handed the card back. I'm sorry, but this card is invalid. Cassidy's hand trembled. Impossible, this is an unlimited card. How can it be invalid? She spun toward me, fury and panic mingling. You did this on purpose? She accused me of raising the bids deliberately, then canceling the card before payment, leaving her with a monstrous debt. The club operated in a gray zone. Those who could not pay often lost everything, and sometimes disappeared from the social map. The implication hung in the air, cold and clear. Cassidy felt it, and a chill crawled up her spine. Around them, the so-called friends who had laughed and shoved now wore different faces. Resentment flickered in their eyes, as the possibility sank in that their brief courage had been for nothing. If not for Cassidy's false status, they would not have dared to offend the Thorne and Cross families. Now, they faced no reward, only the stain of having sided with the wrong woman. Cassidy begged, I don't want any of those things. I don't want them. Her voice was torn, genuine fear cracking through the practiced poise. The room buzzed, a low, hungry sound. The balance of power had shifted in a single evening, and everyone present felt it. I took my daughter's hand, and we returned to the hospital, escorted by bodyguards. Let them tear each other apart, I thought. The next day, Skylar was discharged, and a stretch limousine rolled into the gates of the Thorne mansion. Welcome home, madam. Everyone bowed along the driveway. I immediately spotted Doris Green, my old nanny, shrinking behind the crowd, her face pale with apprehension. I ignored her for now, and went straight to the third floor. Skylar's room was unrecognizable. Furniture lay smashed, walls were smeared with yellow-brown stains, and every piece of jewelry, clothing, and ornament was gone. Cassidy had moved back in brazenly, occupying Brandon's room as if they were the rightful rulers of the mansion. Within 10 minutes, our bodyguards hauled all of Cassidy and Brandon's belongings into the backyard and set them ablaze. My assistant interviewed the staff, and we soon discovered that Doris Green, leveraging her years as head of household, had lied to everyone. She claimed I had been deceived, and that Cassidy was the true heiress. I fired everyone involved and filed lawsuits for theft and property destruction. Doris tried to argue. Miss Cassidy is the girl you raised. If you fire me, my son won't want to marry into the Thorne family. You'll regret this, I said coolly. My son will become a big boss soon. Don't get ahead of yourself. Security dragged her out. Cassidy and Brandon had been left at the club the night before, and they only managed to escape temporarily by returning the purchased items and paying penalties of tens of millions. At school, Cassidy became a pariah, ostracized by everyone. Her former friends abandoned her, leaving her to bear full blame. I ensured Brandon was blackballed. His business partners quickly canceled contracts. In desperation, he tried to recover his losses at a casino. At first, luck seemed to favor him, but soon he was forced to sell nearly all of his luxury items, businesses, and properties to cover debts. Within days, Brandon was on the brink of bankruptcy. The two moved from a luxurious villa to a modest house in the older part of town, Doris Green's old home. Having lived in excess for so long, they could not accept the change. Mom, how much money do we have left? Brandon asked Doris, who was cooking for them. About $500,000, Doris replied, counting on her fingers. Isn't that enough for your business? My money is your money. Humph, barely enough to make a dent. Cassidy sneered from the side, legs crossed, still reveling in the service she had grown accustomed to. Even now, she acted as if she were a privileged heiress. Cassidy, Brandon reminded her gently. If not for your cruelty to Skylar, we wouldn't have fallen so low. Cassidy's expression softened into something pitiful. Brandon, it's all my fault for dragging you down. Originally, all the Thorn assets were yours. Because of me, you've been suppressed everywhere, unable to show your talents. Now I've thought it through. Titles don't matter. Just marry Skylar Cross. As long as you love me and treat me well, that's enough. Brandon's hands gripped her shoulders, almost moved to tears. Cassidy, do you really mean that? She nodded, her voice tinged with melancholy. As long as it's good for you, Brandon, I don't mind any hardship. It's just, Mom doesn't seem to want Skylar Cross to marry you. Brandon's eyes flickered with a darker thought. But what if we first ruin Skylar's reputation, then release those ambiguous chat logs and videos? Then she'd have no choice but to marry you. You mean inappropriate videos and chat logs? Cassidy asked hesitantly. Wouldn't that be bad? Before Skylar was recognized by the Thorn family, she'd been just an orphan, often bullied. Brandon had helped her once, and she had followed him for years, saving every penny just to buy him a pair of sneakers. They're all fake anyway, Brandon. It's all for our future, Cassidy replied. Brandon's eyes narrowed, calculating. Okay, if I become the Thorn family's son-in-law, money will be endless. What's a gambling debt compared to that? That very night, scandalous news about Thorn heiress Skylar Cross's loose history began circulating online. Numerous explicit videos and photos appeared, some showing her face, some obscured, all dressed in school uniforms. Private chat logs surfaced as well, suggesting she practically begged for attention. Someone claiming to be a former classmate alleged that she had started messing around in middle school and had set her sights on Brandon Miller, the top student. According to the rumors, she pursued him relentlessly, openly. Brandon initially resisted, but under the pressure of both the Cross and Thorn families, he had no choice but to comply. Yet the stories claimed Skylar had not learned her lesson, that she targeted her sister, Cassidy White, cheated on Brandon, and deliberately sabotaged them. Naturally, gossip spread. The scandal, featuring a wealthy heiress and her simp, captivated the upper echelons of society. Many assumed I had merely helped my daughter vent her anger. This is the so-called Thorn heiress? Shameless beyond belief. She acts pitiful, but behind the scenes, she's manipulative. She's had her fun, and now she's hunting for a rich man to marry. Rich girls and their escorts are all the same trash. Who would marry her now, besides Brandon Miller? If the Thorns reject Brandon Miller as their son-in-law, it proves they're shallow and status-obsessed. The moment I discovered the scandal, I immediately mobilized my people to contact media outlets. Every news item and post related to Skylar Cross was bought out. Within 30 minutes, all inappropriate videos and chat logs vanished. Seeing the videos of my daughter forcibly stripped and filmed turned my blood to fire. I wanted to throw every trace into the ocean. Simultaneously, I had people investigate the source. I knew those ungrateful vipers were behind it. Once that was underway, I rushed to check on Skylar, worried for her mental state. Mommy, are you going to sleep with me? Skylar asked from her bed, surprise flickering across her face. I studied her closely. Her cheeks had regained some plumpness, and her eyes were no longer swollen from crying. Of course, Mommy will sleep with you tonight, I said gently, pulling back the covers. Your dad will be back tomorrow. Skylar noticed her phone showed the videos had been removed. Seeing me there late at night, she said firmly, I won't torment myself anymore because of other people's attitudes. Online rumors can't hurt me. Those things weren't done by me. As long as I don't admit it, they don't define me. Her tone was determined, unwavering. I saw myself in her, a reflection of my own resilience. I finally realized Brandon Miller was always controlling me, she continued, disgust evident in her expression. Every time I wanted to give up, he dangled hope in front of me. Now, I just want nothing to do with him. It's disgusting. Don't worry, sweetheart. I won't let them get away with this, I reassured her, patting her back as she settled in. The next morning, at the height of rush hour, intimate videos of Brandon Miller and Cassidy White appeared on various websites, a perfect counterstrike in the escalating battle of reputations. That night the locations in the leaked footage varied wildly, some even filmed inside the school. The public relations teams for the Thorn and Cross families moved fast, issuing cease and desist letters and a firm statement declaring Skylar Cross the one and only daughter and sole heiress, with no connection to Brandon Miller. Brandon's lies were exposed, and the truth about Cassidy White and his schemes came out through a handful of insiders. The fake heiress's vicious betrayal became the talk of every salon and social feed. The school responded quickly, expelling the students involved in the bullying. The families of the other participants watched their businesses tumble. Cassidy stopped leaving her house, bombarded with harassing messages. "What do we do now?" she wailed. "Victoria Cross is going to sue me." Brandon, stunned and panicked, never expected Skylar to truly cut him off, to abandon the idea of marrying him. He emptied his mother's savings, sold property, and fled with Cassidy to a small foreign country. They thought they could hide. On arrival, a cloth soaked with knockout drops was pressed over their faces. They woke in a dilapidated warehouse, bound and hooded. A private jet touched down not long after, and Damien Thorne stepped off, black leather jacket sealing his silhouette against the night. His aura was as cold as ever, but with his wife and daughter he softened, the change barely perceptible. Skylar had seen him only a few times, a stern figure in the margins of her life, yet he had worked without rest to put everything in order for her. "We found Brandon and Cassidy in that warehouse, the two of them struggling uselessly against ropes." "Who are you?" "Let me go," Brandon cried, voice shaking. "I can give you money, anything." He begged with the tinny bravado of a man whose illusions had collapsed. "Have you heard of the Thorne family in the city?" he added, voice cracking as he clung to one last lie. "I am their son-in-law. If you harm me, they will not let you live." Damien did not move. He guided Skylar forward with the control of a man who never wasted words. He handed her an exquisite dagger. "This place is beyond the reach of the law," he said in a tone as casual as discussing the weather. "Anything that needs to be done can be done here." An assistant in black stepped forward and yanked off the hoods. Cassidy froze, eyes wide, the sight of Damien stopping her cries mid-sob. "Dad? Please, I was wrong, don't kill me," she begged, voice splintering. She had been raised in the Thorne household. She knew, better than most, what Damien could do. The assistant did not speak, he only brought a wooden plank down across Cassidy's face. The blow swelled and split her skin, almost disfiguring her features. She screamed and scrambled, the sound hollow in the empty warehouse. "Do not shout," Damien said, calm and measured, as if he were settling into a chair in a study. Brandon trembled, finally understanding in his bones that this man could take his life without a second thought. Skylar stood before them, small and fierce, the dagger trembling in her hand. "Apologize," Skylar said, her voice calm but commanding. "Just 2 words." "Skylar, I was wrong, it's all my fault," Brandon stammered. "From now on, whatever you say goes. You've always been the one I loved. I was deceived by Cassidy. All those things were her doing. I never meant to hurt you." His face was full of feigned sincerity. Cassidy stared at him in disbelief. Brandon Miller, the one who claimed to love her, saying such things? Brandon Miller, have you forgotten? You snatched the black card yourself, stepping on her hand. Skylar's voice rose. You pretended to defend her in front of me, deliberately provoking me to make things difficult for her. You even told me to hire thugs to humiliate her, so you could play the hero. The two began exchanging accusations, each blaming the other for past misdeeds. I gripped Damien Thorne's hand tightly, fury simmering. Even after reading the investigation report, hearing it firsthand ignited a fire inside me. Damien allowed me to hold his hand, his eyes colder than ice. Skylar's frail frame swayed slightly as she pressed the dagger against their throats. I don't want to dirty my hands with you, she said firmly. You both claim you're innocent, but only one of you gets to walk out of here today. She placed the dagger on the ground. Mommy, Daddy, untie them, she added quietly. I nodded. The assistant stepped forward and cut their ropes. They glared at each other, hatred burning hotter than any enemy could muster. Let's go, Skylar said, taking one of my hands and one of her father's. Outside the warehouse, a doctor waited. The plan had never been to let her get blood on her hands. Still too soft-hearted, Damien commented, though he added with a small nod, but you did very well. Skylar's face lit up with a radiant smile. Thank you, Daddy. It's so good to have Mom and Dad. In the aftermath, Brandon Miller and Cassidy White had their comeuppance. In a desperate struggle, they stabbed each other, collapsing in a pool of blood, but the doctors saved them in time. Their recovery was slow, and upon repatriation, they faced justice. Brandon was forced to work off debts and later was caught with multiple charges: intentional assault, defamation, black card fraud, and solicitation, ensuring he would spend the rest of his life in prison. Doris Green, enraged over her son's downfall, blamed Cassidy White and abused her daily. Eventually, Cassidy, pushed to her limit, shoved Doris down the stairs, leaving her a vegetable. Cassidy tried to flee the country but was caught, charged, and sentenced to life imprisonment alongside Brandon. Meanwhile, Damien Thorne's fury reached the families of the students who had bullied Skylar. Some went bankrupt, fled their towns, or moved entirely for safety. We turned our attention to Europe, where we had extensive business interests, and this time, our daughter accompanied us. No longer afraid for her, I nurtured Skylar in the world outside the home. A flower in a greenhouse could never compare to a tree growing wild and strong. We witnessed elephant migrations on vast grasslands, visited military bases to learn shooting, and I personally taught her to fly a helicopter. I guided her through the ruthless world of business, teaching her to navigate both open attacks and hidden deceptions. Gradually, Skylar Cross grew stronger, filled with confidence and vitality. Her eyes now held ambition and resolve, no longer tethered to the approval of others. The future stretched before her, bright and boundless.